Hi, I'm Azeredo with Kettlebottom Outdoors, and I'm just going to walk you through the process of reinstalling my D-loop. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have a razor, and you want to be very careful when you're around your string or on your bow with it, because it's under tension even though it's in a bow press, but you want to make sure you're not nicking and cutting anything at all. So I'm going to remove my D-loop, and I have a couple of nocking points that are set in the center, so I'm going to remove the D-loop first, and then we're going to retie our nocking points. So nice and steady with this, there's no rush, you can go nice and slow. So there's one side, and then the other side. So there is my D-loop. I like to tie nocking points. This is also something that I learned from John Dudley in Nock on Archery. What that is doing is just keeping the same spot where your nock will be setting every single time. I've removed this top nocking point because it was fraying slightly. So what that's telling me is that when I do nock my arrow, there's some chafing going on with the top of my nocking point, which is also telling me that my arrow is not level with my rest. So I'm going to cut and retie and start completely fresh, wax my string, make sure everything is running properly. So we'll finish cutting this bottom nocking point. And I've actually made a mark on the string that shows me where that center was, and I'm going to come down maybe 1/16 of an inch. For starting with our nocking points, I like to use BCY 350. It's the diameter of that thread. Very strong thread. You can buy it in blue, yellow, purple, green, black, but red is dead, and I will be using red. So you want to cut yourself off about 16, 18 inches of line. For this process, you also want to make sure you have a lighter handy. Go socks. So now, from this small mark that I made on my arrow, on my string, I will nock an arrow. And how I will do this is I will start on the underside of the string and doing an overhand knot, but going twice through the loop. And I'm going to be coming down, making sure I'm just barely touching that nock. And pull that tight. And then I'm going to come under the string and do the same thing. Twice through. Also making sure that I'm just barely touching that nock. Now I'm going to do 3 on the top and 3 on the bottom. So there's my first set. Why I like to use these nocking points, and the real reason for them is if you do a lot of shooting, you want to make sure that you're keeping that same spot every time. So if you do start wearing through that D-loop, your nocking points are set in the same exact place every time, so you can just change out your D-loop and not have to worry about it. But here we're starting over just because whether I did not tie it perfectly straight or it had moved during the process of me shooting so much over the summer months. But either way, we'll get it fixed. This is round 3. Making sure that each one of those knots is very tight, close together. But on this last one for up top, I'm going to leave just a slight amount of space. Nothing major, just a little more than what I usually do. Do my last knot here on the bottom, going through this loop twice. Cinch that shut. Now you can see between the second and third knot that I made, there is a small gap. So you're just going to do a overhand knot. This is just going to be one knot, one time through here. And you're going to want to sit that knot right into that gap. And then one more. Make sure that's nice and tight. Now when I like to make my cut, I like to leave about 1/8 of an inch or so. This is junk that can be thrown away. Here's where the lighter comes in. Now you don't want to come under the string and give a flame, because then you'll start to burn. You always want to work from the top down. So I'll remove my arrow, and then I will just slowly bring that flame in, working those knots right down, and then just touching them so they get burned and it won't unravel on me. Now we will tie the same knocking point up top. Once again, about 16 inches here. Always want to have a little more with this, just so you can make sure those knots are nice and tight. You're going to come under. Make sure you go through twice. Start cinching that down. Now with the top knocking point, you're gonna want to leave just maybe a 32nd of an inch. You want to have just a slight little bit of wiggle room, because when you do pull back, the knocking points and D loop will start pushing together because of the tension. Especially with shooting a 70-pound bow, there's going to be a lot of tension on that D loop, so everything's going to start moving closer together. So that's where you get something called knock pinch. So I'd like to leave a little bit of space for that knock pinch to really set into the serving. So there's my top. You can see there's just a slight amount of space. And we'll do the bottom. Third one, once again, we're going to leave just a very small gap so we can finish our loop or finish our knot. Be able to tie that square knot right up top. Nice and tight. And now we'll finish with one knot, one time through, making sure it's going right into that gap. And use a square knot. We will finish that baby right there. So now you can see there's just that small amount of space. Make that nice and tight. We'll cut this to about 1/8 of an inch or so. Pull our lighter. Make sure to not be going under, but coming over top. Then letting that go shut. Nice. Now we're going to be tying our D-loop. This is D-loop material. Once again, they make it in all different colors. But if you go on the internet, you can find D-loop material. I like this red and black because red is dead. So how you want to start this? You want to make a J. I like to leave about 2 to 3 inches of tag. You're going to make this J, and you're going to come on the back side of this string, and you're going to put the tag end along with the rest of the end all the way through. so it looks just like so. And for this procedure, it's best to have a good pair of needle nose pliers. So you want to make sure that this knot stays nice and tight the entire time. So I like to push it together, pull on that tag end, and you can pull on the actual loop end. Once again, pinch that together, making sure it's tight up against that knocking point. And then you can give it one good, real good pull. And then one last time on the tag end. There's a lot of pressure and stress that goes onto this D loop, so you want to make sure you have it on correctly. Now, I will cut that tag end, and I'll leave right about 1/8 of an inch of material. And then you want to sit and fluff that end. Get a nice little ball of yarn going. And once again, with your lighter, never go from underneath, always go up top. So we're going to move our D loop, our actual loop, out of the way. And we're going to start lighting this up. You don't want to cause a fire if you can't help it. And once it starts getting that nice little black ball and wanting to catch fire, you can then nicely fluff that end right up. Make sure you're getting any of the strands out of there as well. There's our bottom side. Now, for the top side, you're going to want to take this loop material and come to this side of the string. And this is going to come through here, through the actual loop, and then around the string that's connected to the loop, and back up to itself. You can also cut this long length of material to 6-8 inches, so you don't have to worry about all the tag in, but I like to conserve. So now that we've gotten to this point, it's all going to be dependent on the style of release that you're going to be shooting. For instance, when I use the silverback release, a back tension release, I am not going to be inverting this. I'm going to be having it right at about a 45-degree angle, so there'll be a very slight twist in the D loop, so I don't need to make it too long. But if I made it too short, I would actually be twisting the string and moving this peep sight around, so I don't want that. I'm going to leave about anywhere from 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, because it will stretch out over time very slightly. So this is actually just about where I like my D loop. So from here, I'm going to pull my tag in nice and shut, and then I'm going to take, hence why I need needle nose pliers, right in the middle here. I'm going to slowly tighten that right up. You can see how it's expanding, making sure that knot's staying nice and tight. Pull that tag end, and then one more time on the actual loop. And that's about perfect. Now to finish this, I'll make my final cut, just about 1/8 or so of an inch. Making sure you're going easy, not wanting to cut into this string. Always be very careful when you have a knife around the bow. Fluff up that tag end. Move that D loop right out of the way. Start melting down that knot. You don't want a fire. Do it one more time to make sure it's nice and done. And there you have it. Fully tied in D loop to 2 knocking points. Thanks again for watching Kettlebottom Outdoors. Time to start practicing.